Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you again for joining us here in our fellowship hall as we worship God together. This week, as I was thinking about the sermon, I ran across a clip of one of my favorite movies. Maybe you know it. It's from the early 80s called A Christmas Story. Do you know the movie? It's about a young lad right around the end of 1930s, 1940. He was just looking forward to Christmas, and he only wanted one thing. His name was Ralphie, and Ralphie only wanted one thing. He wanted a Red Ryder carbine action 200-shot range model air rifle. I mean, he had it down. That's all he ever wanted, right? And he wanted it because, see, there were bullies in the neighborhood that they just attacked his house, and he wanted to be the provider. He had to protect his home, and so he wanted that gift. But it wasn't easy. He got all kinds of answers that he didn't like. He thought it was a no-brainer. Of course he should have that. But his mother said, no, it'll put your eye out. Then his teacher said, no, it'll put your eye out. And even Santa Claus at the local drugstore said, yeah, it'll put your eye out. So there he was. He wanted this really, really bad, but he got answers that he didn't like. It was very discouraging. We've been following the prophet Habakkuk, and he's asking God for something. All he wants is justice in his land. There's injustice out there. There are leaders that are taking advantage of people, using their position to victimize other people. He just wants God to take care of that. So he's having conversation with God about that, but he's getting answers that are discouraging. And God responds. He says, look, I got good news but bad news. The good news is I'm going to take care of the injustice by these folks. I'm just going to get rid of them. The bad news is the way I'm going to get rid of them is I'm just going to bring bigger, badder enemies from outside, and they're going to wipe out everything. And Habakkuk steps back and says, what? How could more evil be the solution to some evil? It's a deep, profound question. And today we're going to hear God's response to that deep, profound question. And it's going to be an answer that maybe we didn't expect. Maybe it'll be a little different, something other than we hoped for. But it really challenges the prophet and challenges us to step back a little bit and think about what we mean by victory. What are we really asking God to do? And God begins his response by saying that this victory that he's planning, it is certain. Look at Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 3. He says, for the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. So many of the arguments we have about God, it's about time. We don't like his sense of timing at all. He doesn't understand time. Like there's always too much time or not enough time. Sometimes there's too much time. Like we want God to act now. We want him to fix the problem now. Our body hurts now. Heal it now. Our relationships need fixed now. Our financial situation, fix it now. We want everything fixed now. That's the schedule we want God to be on. And when it comes to world affairs, we want him to fix things now. We have him on a calendar and he is disappointing us. Now, of other cases, of course, there is too much time, not enough time. Actually, there's not enough time when you're a mom and you're trying to deal with many, many things. There's not enough time to get it all done. Or when you're in corporate world, there's not enough time to get the deadlines done. There's not enough time with your grandkids. Sometimes there's not enough time, but most of the time, there's too much time. We're waiting for God to do something, and we don't like his sense of timing. And there's a reason for that, because we only have so many trips around the sun, and then we're done, at least the physical part of us. And so we want God to move it along a little bit, and here he is, seeming to be taking his own sweet time, not just with us personally, but in history. I mean, this has been going on for decades and centuries and millennia. What is God doing? Why is it taking him so long to get anything done? And what God is saying to the prophet is, I want you to understand that I'm not running on your schedule. God is not running on our schedule. We're limited by so many times around the sun, but he's not. By definition, God is what we call eternal, which that word simply means not related to time, disconnected from time. God is not on anybody's clock. He creates clocks. He creates time. And what he wants you to understand is the program he's working on, the issue he's working on, it's not on a clock. But he promises that when the clock is done, when the final bell sounds, he's telling you who wins. He's saying, in the end, I win. The victory is sure and certain. You don't have to guess how this is all going to end. I will get what I want. Case closed. It's just not going to be on your schedule. And so he wants to make that clear right out of the box. See, whenever we go to God, we have to go with that kind of open hand when it comes to our calendar. We see deadlines. We want to know when things are going to happen. We can only see so far into the future, and then we're guessing. And he's saying, I want you to know up front, I don't work on your calendar. But you can trust that when all the calendar is done, when there is no more time, when the final bell sounds, I win. And there needs to be a peace about that in our soul, a trust about that in our soul. Somehow that knowledge of this certain victory, of who wins, and someday it will be clear. He uses the word revelation. See, the truth is already done. See, in God's mind, it's already done. The victory is already won. He said it, it's a fact. But the revelation isn't clear yet. Not everybody knows that. The message isn't out there yet. People haven't accepted yet. The revelation isn't clear. But the victory, it's already won. In God's timing, in God's eternity, it's already won. The victory's done. So how is that supposed to help us? I mean, because we still live in this world of time. We're still on this journey around the sun, and we're still trying to figure out how that victory in the future can help us today. How does that motivate us? How does this inspire our actions? Well, God continues talking here, reminding us that the victory is certain, but it's also inspiring. Look what he says in verse 4. He says, see, the enemy is puffed up. His desires are not upright, but the righteous person will live by his faithfulness. There's a contrast here. See, what happens is we don't trust God's victory. If we get tired of waiting for him to do what he's doing, we start making stuff up. We start like inventing things. We get tired of God and we put him on his shelf. Either we walk away entirely or we go through the motions like we're still following him, but we're not following him. We've given up on him. And so we're making our own way. We're inventing our own end goals. And soon we're like seeking it. That becomes, we're waiting for God to provide pleasure, so we're just going to go get it any way we can. We're waiting for God to provide wealth, so we go get it any way we can. We want God to provide power and influence and change, but God's not doing it, so we're just going to rush off and do it on our own. And that's fine to a point, but then at some point we cross a line. And all of a sudden, other people are not as important because now wealth is more important, pleasure is more important, power is more important, and we start doing the wrong thing, not doing the upright thing. And then when we succeed and we get wealthy and we get powerful, we get puffed up because we think we did it on our power, on our abilities, on our wisdom, on our strength. We think, well, we become our own gods. Or at least we invent gods that are very much like us in our own image. That's one way to go down the trail. But that's what happens when we stop believing that God wins. We start thinking we can invent other kind of wins and that we can be the winner without God. But against that, God draws a contrast. He says, but the righteous one, the one doing the right thing to do in that context is to live by your faithfulness. Live by your faithfulness. That word faith, it's a powerful word. It tells us, it really is the secret about how we get from here to there, how we live in a world where God isn't working on our timeline. Faith is that reality that keeps us engaged with him. Faith is a very powerful concept. This verse that we see here in Habakkuk, it shows up again in the New Testament. Paul uses it twice, once in the letter to the Romans, once in the letter to the Galatians. It's a revelation to him that, oh my, you mean I'm right before God based upon trusting him instead of my works? It was new to him. The writer to the Hebrews uses it in the same kind of way. It's this power of faith. Some of you know the story of Martin Luther, the one who started the whole Protestant Reformation. It was all because of this verse. He discovered this verse, and there was a truth unlocked in his head that, wait a minute, faithfulness is powerful. It can change things. The forgiveness of God, it's not by my works. It's by trusting God. Faith is a very powerful word, and it has a lot of levels and nuance to it. But when it comes down to it, it's about believing and trusting God. That's really the bottom line. We can believe a lot of things and trust a lot of things, but those things are wrong. Those things are false. Those things fail us. We can trust people and they let us down. We can trust philosophies and they let us down. We can trust marketing schemes and they can let us down. But what God is saying is a power thing is when you trust Him, because He is who He is. And we trust that He will win the victory. And something happens when we live that life of trusting God in the midst of all these things we don't understand. We get very humble. We can come to Him and say, I don't understand what you're doing, God. I don't even agree with what you're doing. We can lash out at Him. We can have an arguments like the prophet, all that. But there's a humility that comes at the end and says, but, God knows better. And it's not just He knows better. He is better in every way. He's all powerful, all wise, and all loving. Somewhere in His head, we're trusting that this is going in a direction that is right for Him. We don't get it. We don't understand it. We wish He would work faster and do it our way. But He's saying, look, I know what I'm doing. You have to trust me. That faith component, it is the way we get through those days where we don't get it and we don't understand. And we've all been in those situations in our life where God's taken way too long to get this done. And then somewhere along the line, for our own peace of mind, we have to step back and say, look, I have to trust that God knows what He's doing. And we can question that sometimes, because sometimes those things we want, those things we desire, those things we go after, it turns out it's not as wonderful as we think. You remember how the movie goes. Ralphie, he gets his rifle. He's all excited. And he puts the little pellets in there, and he goes out back and shoots at the bad guys, and sure enough, one of the little pellets ricochets, hits him, icicle falls off the thing, hits him in the glasses, and the glasses fall on the ground. He steps on the glasses. Sure enough, the gun almost put his eyes out in a way he didn't expect. Sometimes what we want, it doesn't work out the way we want. I'm sure there are times in your life where you wanted something really bad, a home or a job or a relationship or kids. And then you think, okay, maybe this wasn't everything I hoped it would be, all right? Maybe it didn't turn out exactly right. What do you do in those situations? See, then you know God is up there and He gets all that. He understands what we want and what we get and how we can't understand. There's a God who is working through all this. It is the key. Faithfulness is the key. It's that faith that doesn't just believe in a God, but is moved by that truth, that brings peace to help us to do the right thing. Because the world out there is saying, don't do the right thing. Act for yourself. Live for yourself. Go for the pleasure. Do whatever it takes, because this is all we've got. A faithful life says, no. I'm going to do the right thing. Even if I don't see it how it works out, even if it seems silly, even if the world doesn't understand it, I'm going to do the right thing. Because I know God has already declared a winner in this. And when it's all done, I want to be on that side, because I trust the God who says He is. But there's another level of confidence He gives to us. Not just saying, trust me, but He illustrates for us what He's looking for, where He's going. See, what He then says to Habakkuk, if you read through the whole chapter, and I encourage you to go back there, he pronounces a series of woes. There's 5 woes. And if you know the culture, what's really happening there is he's giving a funeral service. He's giving a funeral service for the enemies, representing the Babylonians. He's saying, yeah, they're dead. Which is odd, because they haven't even won anything yet. But in God's economy, because He is who He is, yeah, they're already dead. They're already beaten. It's just a matter of time. You're going to see it. They're going to go. And sure enough, in time, they are defeated. And what He's going to say, all that stuff you've been working for, all that wealth, all that pleasure for your kids, and it's just going to go to somebody else. Somebody else bigger and badder is going to take it. And that's exactly what happened. The Persians beat the Babylonians, then the Greeks beat the Persians, and the Persians come along, and then the Romans come along and beat them. I mean, it's just one after another. The bad guys keep coming. And they're bigger and worse than the bad guys before them. But in the middle of all those woes, in the middle of that funeral service, God gives a vision of his version of victory. It's a complete vision of victory. Look at verse 14. He says, "For the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea." The earth will be filled with the knowledge of God, the knowledge of the glory of God. What he's saying is there's going to be this realization that God is God, and it's going to change who you are, and it's going to saturate you so thoroughly, it's going to change who we are as a people. Sometimes this happened in Israel's history. You can read the stories. It's all recorded there. For example, it happened with the people of Israel in the desert. They saw on Sinai God's glory revealed. And you remember what happened? They're like, whoa, God is here. Ooh, everybody worship. For that moment, everybody's changed. Because they've seen God. It's filled their senses. But then, of course, they forget, and then they go off and they do whatever they do. The great Elijah, he saw it. In Mount Carmel, the glory of God revealed, all the false prophets destroyed right there, the enemies destroyed, and everybody's like, whoa, this is God. And they bow down and worship. And then the weeks and months go by, and they forget all about it, and then they go back to doing what they were doing before. It worked for a while, but then it wore off. But what God is saying, no, there's going to be this place where my presence is going to so saturate this world that people are going to get it. It's not going to be on again, off again. It's going to be full of the revelation, full of the knowledge of the glory of God. See, what Habakkuk didn't realize is he was asking for a partial victory. He's asking for some evil to be done away with. Can you just take care of this bad guy and that bad guy? It's just some. But what God is saying, no, I'm after total victory, complete victory. I'm after changed minds and hearts so that nobody goes back to being the way they used to be. Total change. See, we all will do that. We're after total victories. That's why we want frying pans. Because we just want this fixed and that fixed and the other thing fixed, and we pick and choose, and then we all have our own picking and choosing going on, and we want this fixed, which is human. That's what we do. And it's not even a bad thing. I mean, we can't fix everything, so let's just fix this thing, this act of injustice. Let's just do this. And that's great. That's what human beings do. And God encourages that. I mean, we're supposed to be about doing the right thing. So that's not a bad thing. But what God is saying, but you need to know I'm doing another thing. I'm changing people's hearts and minds. And that's going to take some time. I've been in the people change business for a long time, and I got to tell you, that takes time. And a lot of times I'm powerless to change people. I mean, you got to do something to get into their souls before they change how they think about themselves and how they think about God and how they think about the world. Something has to change in our life to fundamentally get inside of us. And God says, that's what I'm about. I'm about changing folks from the inside out. And he's been doing it all the way along. One person after another gets that vision of who God is. And then it's about a lifetime of being in the presence of God so that we're filled with the presence of God, so that the way we think and feel and act is motivated, is inspired, is directed by the fact that God is right there in our midst. See, God is picturing a new heaven and a new earth where we're filled with the knowledge of the glory of God. Everybody is constantly saturated with this truth that God is in the room. And we bow before him and we act like he wants us to act because our hearts and minds are thoroughly changed by his presence. See, that's the game that God is in. That's victory. And the shocking thing for all of us is he said, and by the way, that battle is already won. I don't know how that battle is won because I'm looking around and it looked like he's losing sometimes. And God says, trust me, I'm winning. And when it's done, you're going to see that the whole world is going to be like those children of Israel before the mountain saying, yeah, you're God. That's where we're going. So what's the point? Well, I actually think God gives us the point right in the text here. Albeit it's somewhat of an image that we have to unpack. The point is really in verse 20. After the funeral service is done, he says very clearly, the Lord in his holy temple, the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth be silent before him. That's the vision. The Lord, this God who is with us, the God that is I am, he said, I'm there in my temple. You know, Habakkuk, we learned he was probably a worker in the temple. He helped with the music there. He worked in that temple. It was still standing, this temple that Solomon built. If you go back and look at 2 Chronicles chapter 7, you go back and read the first verses there, when after Solomon finished praying, this cloud of God's glory filled the temple. It was like, whoa! God took up residence among his people, and the story tells us that the priests couldn't even go in. It was that story of Sinai and Moses all over again. God is there. It says all the people fell down on their face and worshiped God. See, Habakkuk must have heard that story. And God's saying, you see that image? You remember that image? That's true today. Right now, God never left the temple. God is there right now, today. He's in his temple. It's a heavenly temple. The temple we see today, it's that Solomon's temple, it's gone. But God has never left his heavenly temple. He's present with us right now. And he's saying to us, really, you need to understand, I never left. I'm here all the time doing that big, complete victory, changing people's lives, making them see themselves differently. I have not given up on that, and I'm here in my holy house. I'm just trying to get people to see that, to reveal that, and we're part of that community. So what's the point? How would we put it in our language? To me, one way I would put that is we realize now that what God is wanting is well worth the wait. It's well worth the wait. See, a lot of times when we're arguing with God, we're like, God, you're not doing this fast enough. I need you to do this, what I'm asking you to do, and I need you to do it now. And when God is saying, look, I understand you have a sense of urgency, but what I'm doing is changing people's hearts and lives. And when I'm done, you're going to see that. And what we're supposed to do in the vision of that is say, okay, I can wait for that. Because until that happens, there's just going to be more bad guys doing more bad stuff. Until people's lives change, we're just going to repeat the same errors. And he's saying, you are my people, in my name. You can be part of this life-changing world, so do the right thing. Trust me, follow me, and see what changes he will bring about. So in the end, we can complain, we can argue, we can disagree. But when you see God is in his house, okay, I'm done talking now. Because God is God, and he's already won. We can take that to the bank. So where do we go from here? Next steps? Well, there's probably a lot of things, but what occurred to me as I reflected again on this passage is, how much time do I spend filling myself up with that image of God in his temple? Like, how much time do we spend, like, reminding ourselves that God is here in our midst? You know, we come here on Sunday, we listen to the pastor go on. He takes too much time. That's one of those things, like, God, could you move him along, please? But then we go off in our life and we start listening to everybody else making all these things. Do we fill ourselves up with this image of God right there that is meant to bring us peace and hope? That God is doing something and we can be a part of that. What are we doing throughout the week? It's one of the reasons we do this little Psalms thing, a devotional, however you do it, the Bible studies. Find some people, get around that are working on this, but it's our job to stay focused upon what God is doing. Otherwise, we're going to get out of focus and we're going to lose our way. Let's pray. Father God, we do ask that you just bring us back to this truth, that you're in your house, filled with your glory. You're doing things we don't understand in ways we don't understand on a time schedule we don't understand, but that doesn't mean you're not doing anything. Then in the end, you're trying to change people's hearts and minds so that we stop repeating ourselves and making the same mistakes over and over again. And that's what you're doing among your people. It's what your Spirit is always doing, creating new life. And so, Father, make us be a part of that solution. Help us to be encouraged by your actions. to realize that we're all part of your eternal plan. We ask this in Christ's name. Amen.